I've been thinking a lot lately about Moses, about how God called him to do something significant, to set his people free from oppression. And God said to Moses, you know, I've heard the misery of your people, and I've heard their cries for deliverance. And Moses, I want you to go and deliver them. And Moses responded, Lord, who am I to do this? How can you expect me to lead this charge? And God responded, I will be with you. That's all you need to know. And it's interesting, I think, that he gave him this call through this incredible sign, this burning bush, this image that Moses could look back on and say, yes, God did do that, something he could remember for years to come. You know, God also called two men to do something significant right here in Baltimore. And this is their story.
Well, we're here on beautiful Federal Hill overlooking downtown Baltimore. You may be wondering, why in the world are we in Baltimore talking about River Valley Ranch and the campaign update? Well, actually, the story of River Valley Ranch began right here in Baltimore. You see, almost 70 years ago, God called our founders, Peter and John Bissett, to come to this city and to share God's love with them. And they first started doing that by buying time on a local radio station here. And in the early years, they really struggled with the ministry. But there was something very significant that happened right down here on Maryland Avenue, right in the early years, that made a significant impact on this ministry. And had it not happened, River Valley Ranch, Shine FM, or none of the ministries of Peter and John would be here today. Let me take you down there and tell you what happened. So Peter and John had started the radio program, but the problem was it was on late at night, a few days a week, and there just wasn't enough of a listenership to really make a difference, to get the word out about what they were trying to do with the ministry. So they decided, let's look into doing something that would be an everyday program during prime time. But that was a huge financial commitment. So they actually came right to this very spot, right across from the studios of WBMD, which is a pretty big station at the time. And they had an opportunity to go up there and make this big financial commitment to do this, but they were not sure about it. And they just couldn't quite make a decision. And while they were standing right here, a truck pulls up and stops right here on the street. And a guy leans out the window and says, Peter and John, I know you. And they looked at each other, confused about it. And he said, I have something for you. And he goes around to the back of the truck and he opens it up and he pulls out a big basket of apples. And he lays it right here on the curb and he says, God bless you. Gets in the car and drives away. And they looked at each other and they said, this is it. This is the sign the Lord had sent to us to tell us that he wants us to be fruitful and to make this decision, take a step of faith and do what's right, and I will bless you with abundant fruit. And from that moment, they went right across the street, up in there, into the studios of BMD and signed the papers. And Peter and John Radio Fellowship was born. And River Valley Ranch, Shine FM, and WRBS AM have all come right out of that key decision that happened right here. It's been a few years since Peter and John first came here and made that big decision for this ministry. And we've had some ups and downs, and one of the recent downs that we had was a few years ago during the economic downturn. It hit a lot of people hard, but it hit the ranch hard as well. We had to cut some programs and actually let some staff go, and it was a really difficult time for us. And I decided, let's bring the staff down here and tell them that story. Tell them the story of God's faithfulness and how he had blessed the decision Peter and John made to keep this ministry fruitful. So we came down here, told the story, and I had a basket of apples hidden over here. I thought it was a really clever idea, a way to kind of reinforce this point. And I brought the basket of apples out, and everybody got one and ate it. And as we are standing here eating our apples, a truck pulls up and parks right in the same spot that truck parked 60 years ago. And it was a Boggers truck. And if you've ever seen a Boggers truck, it has their apple guy with an apple head holding a basket of apples out like this. And Mike Chai said, look, and we all turned around and saw that. And the whole staff went crazy. They couldn't believe that the same thing had happened here 60 years later, almost the same as it happened before. And I really took that as a sign as the Lord saying, we are not done with River Valley Ranch yet. We have many more things that we want to do to bless this ministry if you'll just be faithful and take a step of faith I'll be with you. I will help you be more fruitful. So here we are, another crossroads, another big step of faith that needs to happen in the history of the ranch. We know God wants to be fruitful. We know He wants to reach more kids, many more kids into the future. But we've got this barrier in our way right now. And it's these aging buildings that are just not going to last much longer if we don't address them. I'll tell you, I got to admit, when we talked about doing a capital campaign, I had my doubts. I relate a lot to Moses when he was asked to go and set his people free. He said, how can I do this, Lord? Why me? I'm not capable of this. And I got to admit, I feel the same way. How can we do this? I'm not a fundraiser, but I do know this. We know the Lord wants us to be fruitful. We know that He has other plans. He has other people that He wants to reach through this ministry. But we've got this obstacle in our way of deteriorating buildings that just aren't going to make it. We've got almost $1 million septic system that's got to be repaired in less than a year if we're going to keep our doors open. And we need you to help us to be fruitful. Will you help us take that step? Will you climb on the back of that Apple truck and help us to reach out into the next generation? I encourage you to go to rivervalleyranch.com/campaign and make a commitment of at least $1 a day to help us do it. We need you to do it. Let's go.